There is a particular kind of silence that settles over a person the moment they realize the decision being made for them is the wrong one. I know that silence. I lived inside it for 11 days before I found my way out. My name is Cordelia. I am 79 years old. I live in a narrow Victorian house on a street lined with catalpa trees, and I have lived here for 41 years. My late husband Reginald planted those trees himself. He is gone now, 7 years this October, and the trees are enormous, cathedral-like, dropping their long seed pods onto the sidewalk every autumn, like discarded scrolls. I sweep them up. I have always swept them up. That is my house. That is my street. That is my life. 11 months ago, my daughter Saoirse flew in from Portland. She sat across from me at my kitchen table, the same oak table where I have eaten every meal since 1983. And she spread papers in front of me. Photographs of facilities, printed pages from websites, a brochure for a place called Heathfield Gardens that had a photograph of a smiling woman on the cover who looked nothing like anyone I have ever known. She said very gently, very carefully, the way you speak to someone you believe can no longer understand you properly. Mom, this is just the next step. This is what happens. I looked at the papers. I looked at her face. And I felt that silence press in around me like water rising. But underneath the silence, something else was moving. Something that had kept me alive through Reginald's death, through my own cancer scare in 2019, through every difficulty that had arrived at my door over 8 decades on this planet. It was not panic. It was not grief. It was something much more useful than either of those things. It was the specific, clarifying anger of a woman who knows she is right. I was not ready. I was not finished. And I did not believe for a single moment that a building full of strangers and fluorescent lighting and a schedule posted on a bulletin board was the only possible future available to me. I refused to believe that needing help with certain things meant forfeiting everything. So after Saoirse went back to her hotel, I sat down at my kitchen table, in my house, under my roof, and I began researching. What I found over the following weeks changed everything. Not just for me. For the 43 people I have now spoken to about these options. For the 17 families who have written to me since I began sharing what I discovered. For anyone who has ever sat across from a well-meaning person holding a brochure and felt that cold certainty that they were about to be filed away somewhere permanent. There are 5 alternatives to nursing homes that most people never hear about. Not because they are obscure, not because they are difficult to access, but because the conversation around aging in this country has a particular shape, a funnel, and at the narrow end of that funnel is a facility with a sign out front and a waiting list and a monthly fee that would make your knees buckle. Nobody profits from telling you about the other options, so nobody does. I am going to. The first alternative is in-home care, and it is exactly what it sounds like, which is why people underestimate it. Most people, when they hear in-home care, imagine a nurse stopping by once a week to take blood pressure and ask a few questions. That is not what I am describing. I am describing something far more comprehensive, far more personal, and far less expensive than a residential facility of any kind. In-home care at its fullest means hiring trained professionals to come to your home, your actual home, the one with your photographs on the walls, and your particular arrangement of coffee cups in the cabinet, and help with the specific things you struggle with. Not everything, not your entire life, the specific things. For some people, that is mobility assistance and bathing. For others, it is medication management and grocery shopping. For others still, it is meal preparation and transportation to appointments. You assess what you actually need. You hire for exactly that, and everything else remains entirely yours. The person comes, they help, they leave. That last part matters more than most people realize. They leave. Your home returns to you. Your quiet returns. Your routine, your autonomy, your particular way of inhabiting your own life, all of it intact. I pay for 22 hours of in-home care per week. My aide, a calm and remarkably competent woman named Thessaly, arrives 4 mornings a week. She helps me with the things that have become genuinely difficult. Heavy cleaning, cooking anything that requires standing for more than 20 minutes, the weekly trip to the pharmacy and the market. She knows when to speak and when to be quiet, which is a skill rarer and more valuable than most people acknowledge. At noon, she goes home, and I have my house back. The average cost of this level of in-home care runs between $2,000 and $4,000 monthly, depending on your location and the number of hours you require. The average cost of a nursing home runs between $8,000 and $12,000 monthly. Those numbers are not close to each other. That gap represents your independence, your privacy, your front door, your catalpa trees, your 41 years of accumulated life in a place that belongs to you. When I told Saoirse what I had arranged, she was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "Why didn't anyone tell us this was possible?" I did not have a good answer. I still don't. But I know it is possible because I am living it. The second alternative is assisted living, and it is not what most people think it is. Here is the confusion. Most people use assisted living and nursing home interchangeably, as though they are the same thing with different carpeting. They are not the same thing. They are fundamentally, structurally, philosophically different things. And understanding that difference might be the most important piece of information in this entire piece of writing. A nursing home is a medical facility. It is designed for people with complex, ongoing medical needs that require round-the-clock clinical oversight. The architecture of daily life inside a nursing home, the schedule, the shared spaces, the staff-to-resident ratios, The fundamental assumption that residents cannot manage themselves reflects that medical origin. It is, at its core, a hospital that people live in permanently. Assisted living is something else entirely. Assisted living is a residential community designed for people who are largely independent, but who benefit from having support available. The operative word is available, not imposed, not scheduled, not delivered whether you want it or not. Available, on request, when you need it. In a proper assisted living community, you have your own apartment, your own front door with your own key, your own kitchen where you can make coffee at whatever hour you choose, in whatever quantity you prefer. Your own furniture, your own books, your own way of arranging a room. You are not a resident in the institutional sense. You are a tenant in the most genuine sense. You live there. It is yours. Meals are available in a shared dining room if you want company and prefer not to cook. They are not mandatory. Activities are offered if you want engagement. They are not required. Help is a phone call away if you need it. It does not arrive uninvited. I visited an assisted living community called Renfield Court as part of my research. I went in deeply skeptical, and I left genuinely impressed. I met a woman named Ottoline in the courtyard. She was 82, had been at Renfield for 2 years, and had the particular air of someone who has arranged her life exactly as she wants it. I asked her directly, "Do you feel like you've given something up?" She thought about it for a genuine moment. Then she said, "I gave up a house I couldn't maintain and isolation I didn't want. I kept everything else." Her apartment was hers, every corner of it. She had brought her own furniture, her art, her enormous collection of ceramic birds, her habits and preferences and personality. The building provided structure. She provided herself. Costs run between $3,000 and $6,000 monthly, which includes housing, utilities, and available support. For people who were already paying significant rent or struggling with the expense and physical demand of maintaining a house alone, this can actually be more economical than independent living. It is almost always more economical than a nursing home, and it preserves something that nursing homes structurally cannot: the genuine experience of living your own life in your own space. This is not my choice. I am not leaving my house. But for people who are ready to leave the house, but not ready to leave themselves, Renfield and places like it are not a lesser option. They are a different one, a real one. The third alternative is multi-generational living, and it requires honesty to work. Let me be precise about what I mean, because multi-generational living done badly is a recipe for resentment and lost autonomy. And multi-generational living done well is something close to elegant. Done badly, it means an elderly person moves into a spare bedroom in their adult child's house, shares every common space, has no private entrance and no private kitchen, and no genuine ability to close a door and exist completely alone. The older person loses their independence. The younger family loses their privacy. Everyone is too polite to say so. Nobody is happy. Done well, it is an entirely different arrangement. A woman I know named Eudora moved in with her son Callum last spring. But she did not move into his house. She moved into a carefully converted garage apartment adjacent to his house. Separate entrance, full kitchen, her own bathroom, her own small living space, furnished with her own belongings. Connected to the main house by a short covered walkway, but genuinely private, genuinely autonomous. Eudora makes her own breakfast every morning. She joins Callum's family for dinner perhaps twice a week, when she wants to. On other evenings, she cooks for herself, or has something simple alone. She has keys. She has quiet. She has the ability to lock her door and not see or speak to anyone for an entire day, if that is what she needs. Callum is nearby if something goes wrong. He drives her to her specialist appointments. He checks in, but he does not hover. They negotiated all of this before the move. They wrote things down. They talked about what independence meant to Eudora and what privacy meant to Callum's family and where the lines were. That conversation, honest, specific, conducted before anyone moved anything, is the difference between the arrangement that works and the arrangement that quietly destroys relationships. The financial logic is straightforward. Shared housing costs, shared utilities, no facility fees, no institutional markup. For families with the space and the willingness to have difficult conversations in advance, this is often the least expensive option of all, and can be among the most dignified. It is not for everyone. It requires the right relationship, the right physical space, and the right temperament on all sides. But when those conditions exist, it is not a compromise. It is a solution. The fourth alternative stopped me cold when I first read about it, because I had never heard of it, and I could not understand why. Adult day programs exist in virtually every mid-sized city in this country. They have existed for decades. They serve tens of thousands of people, and almost nobody outside the field of geriatric social work seems to know they are there. Here is how they work. A person who lives independently at home, who has their own house, their own room, their own life, goes to a community center or dedicated facility during the day. They receive meals, structured activities, social engagement, and whatever level of supervision or medical monitoring they need. They are around other people. They have somewhere to be. They have purpose and rhythm and company built into their day. And then, at the end of the afternoon, they go home. Home. Their home. Where they sleep in their own bed and make their own choices and exist in their own particular way without anyone scheduling it for them. The gap that adult day programs fill is a specific and underappreciated one. Many older people are genuinely capable of independent living in the evening and overnight. The problem is the daytime hours, the long stretch of the day when isolation sets in, when the absence of structure becomes its own kind of difficulty, when family members who work cannot be present and worry anyway. Adult day programs solve that problem without solving it by removing the person from their life. The person stays in their life. They just have somewhere to go. I visited a program called Sycamore Day Center while I was researching. There was a man there. His name was Oleander, he told me, and he watched with pleasure as I worked out how to respond to that, who was 91 years old and had been coming to Sycamore 3 days a week for 4 years. He played chess. He was teaching a younger volunteer to play chess. He had opinions about the lunch menu and was not shy about sharing them. That evening, he told me, he would go home to his apartment 2 miles away, watch whatever he wanted to watch, eat whenever he felt like eating, and sleep in his own bed. The trick, he said, moving a bishop with great satisfaction, is figuring out what you actually need. I needed people during the day. I needed to be left alone at night. This does both. Costs for adult day programs range from $500 to $2,000 monthly. Compared to nursing home costs, this is a fraction. Compared to the human cost of isolation, it is incalculable. The fifth alternative is the one that made me feel for the first time genuinely safe. It is called a village network, and the name is exactly right. A village network is a membership organization, usually nonprofit, usually community-run, that exists for a single purpose: helping older adults remain in their own homes for as long as possible. Not by providing medical care, not by replacing family, by doing something simpler and in its simplicity more profound, by making sure that when you need something, there is someone you can call. Members of a village network pay an annual membership fee, typically somewhere between $300 and $700 per year, not per month, per year. And in exchange, they gain access to a web of volunteers and vetted service providers who can help with the specific, concrete, everyday things that make independent living difficult over time. Transportation to appointments. Help with a repair that requires someone steadier on a ladder. Grocery runs during difficult weeks. Companionship when the walls get close. Referrals to trusted professionals when something more specialized is needed. The village does not manage your life. It does not schedule your days, or supervise your choices, or make decisions on your behalf. It simply makes sure that when you need to not be alone with a problem, you don't have to be. I joined a village network called the Thornfield Collective 8 months ago. My annual fee was $420. I have called them twice. Once when I needed a ride to a specialist appointment that Thessaly was not available for, and once when a tree branch came down in the backyard, and I needed someone to assess whether it had damaged anything structural. Both times someone came. Both times the problem was handled. Both times I went back to my life. But more than the 2 times I have needed to call, what the membership gives me is something harder to quantify and more important than either of those specific instances. It gives me the knowledge that the call exists, that the option is there, that needing occasional help does not mean I am alone with that need, in a way that will eventually overwhelm my ability to stay here. That knowledge is its own kind of support. It is the thing that makes independence sustainable rather than fragile. 11 months ago, I sat at this table with a brochure for a place that would have cost $9,000 a month to make me disappear into a beige room with a whiteboard schedule and a roommate I didn't choose. I would have lost this house. I would have lost Reginald's trees. I would have lost the coffee cup I drink from every morning, the one with a small chip on the handle that I have always meant to replace and never will. I would have lost myself, the specific, particular, difficult, independent self that I have spent 79 years building. Instead, I am here. Thessaly comes 4 mornings a week and helps with the things I struggle with, and leaves at noon, and I have my house back. The Thornfield Collective is a phone call away. I know what assisted living actually is, so if the time comes when I want it, I can choose it clearly instead of fearing it. I know that Eudora's model exists, and Oleander's model exists, and a dozen variations of both. I know that there are options, real ones, not consolations, not lesser versions of the thing I wanted, but genuine paths forward that cost less money and preserve more of who I am, and actually make space for living rather than just waiting. Nobody told Saoirse these options existed. Nobody tells most people. The system has a momentum to it, a particular gravity that pulls toward facility placement. And that momentum is not driven by what is best for the people inside it. It is driven by what is most visible, most familiar, most conveniently packaged. You are allowed to resist that gravity. You are allowed to sit at your own kitchen table, in your own house, under your own roof, and open a laptop and search for something different. You are allowed to call agencies and visit communities and ask direct questions and reject the first answer if the first answer is wrong for you. You are allowed to say, not yet, not this. There has to be something else, because there is. 5 somethings at minimum, and probably more beyond those 5, if you keep looking. I kept looking. I found what I needed. I am still here. The catalpa trees are dropping their seed pods again. I swept the sidewalk this morning. I will sweep it tomorrow. I will be here to sweep it. That is the point. That has always been the point.